Hello, hello. Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I'm your host. I'm Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And for my new listeners out there, I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. For my listeners, my I don't want to say old, but for ones that's been listening for a while, thanks for coming on today. And for my newbies, just so you're aware, you may not know this, but this podcast is about for those who are ready. I mean, really ready to move forward in their lives. They want to overcome obstacles. They want to mitigate those self imposed barriers like self sabotage, imposter syndrome, burnout, and be able to live your best life on your terms. And we talk about topics related to personal and business development and self improvement. And today we have a topic that I just love the topic. It's called Showing the Inner Critic Who's Boss. Now, we all have critics, and we more than likely we're our worst critic. But I like this because now we're going to learn how to show them who's boss and who do I have a special guest on that knows all about this, and her name is Robyn Sears, and I'm going to introduce her to you all. Hi, Robyn.
Hello, Cassandra.
Great having you here today.
Yes, thank you so much. It's such a privilege.
Yes, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read your bio for my listeners so they can get to know you just a little better. Now, Robyn is the founder of Above and Not Beneath. She coaches women worldwide. She has a wide variety of professional experience. She has taken the lessons she's learned and used them to bring awareness to the pending burnout that you're likely feeling. Becoming curious about the physical and emotional relationship to stress will allow you to change your perspective. She also has a podcast under the same name to share more encouragement, positivity, and success stories about incredible human beings changing the world one action at a time. I am so looking forward to take a deep dive into this podcast today. Um, Robyn, what I want to know is I want to know my listeners also would love to know about your backstory that's propelled you in doing the work that you do now. Tell us about that.
Sure. So like most of us, our journeys are circuitous, right? It's this ever evolving path. But I would say the bulk of my work that I'm doing now is I really work with a lot of single mothers who are carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders and are on this tremendous journey to be the best version of themselves and also for their children. And my journey started when I was 17 and I became a mom
Oh,
and got married. And
mhm.
Just a challenging situation in life. I stayed married for 17 years and had 3 children. And
Mm.
when my marriage ended, I had not needed to work. And when I entered into the workforce
Mhm.
in my mid 30s, I really was sort of behind that 8 ball, right? I didn't
Wow.
have all of this corporate experience because I had spent the majority of my time doing a lot of volunteer work and things like that, and building a home for my children and educating them. I homeschooled for a number of years as well.
Okay.
But stepping into the workforce and all of a sudden knowing, supporting my children is on me now.
All right.
And what am I going to do, and how am I going to do this? And
Yes.
am I enough? So the messaging
Mm.
that I've been receiving for the last 17 years was, you're not enough.
Oh, okay.
And so stepping into this new life, like, I'm going to fail at this. I'm not going to be able to support my kids.
Mhm.
How am I going to pay the mortgage? Like, how am I going to do all the things and still raise successful children who become active participants in
Yeah.
society.
Yeah.
And what happened was an incredible journey and a lot of blessing.
Hmm.
So I went to work for a gentleman. He and his wife are entrepreneurs, and they really became mentors to me.
Uh-huh.
And they taught me so many valuable lessons. And a couple of them, I'll share is really like I went in so buttoned up and serious because
Right.
I was going to pull up my bootstraps and make this work, right?
That's right.
Like this is serious business, and I'm
Right.
going to make this happen.
Okay.
And but I didn't know how to laugh at myself in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And they taught me how to like own mistakes in a really positive way and to
Wow.
have difficult conversations in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
They taught me how to like laugh at situations where I'm like, oh, okay, now
Wow.
I'm the accidental mess maker. Okay, now I can back out. I can fix this.
Right.
um, and it was a healing place to find myself to work. And I
Wow.
found so much kindness there.
Mm-hmm.
And through their mentorship and a number of years of working for them, I emerged from that situation with the knowledge that, okay, like I did this and I did it really well.
Right.
And now I want to see what else can I do.
Wow.
And so I left that organization and started working for another one, and a lot of incredibly valuable lessons there as well. I have done a number of things. I've worked with a lot of really interesting organizations, and I worked in customer success for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my heart has always kind of gone back to the woman who is kind of at that precipice and struggling with that self-worth and the value and battling that inner message. It may be
Yes.
messages, we have these childhood wounded messages that we carry with us,
Yeah.
messages that the world tells us, and those messages kind of they take root,
Yes, they do.
and uh, and they are lies that we believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of my journey, I came to this point where I was full-time caregiving for my mother who was
Oh,
passing,
nice.
and
Yeah.
a full-time stressful job.
Yes.
And I came to this point where my mother passed away, and I wasn't handling anything well. Just
Yeah.
the stress had really gotten to me, and the messaging that I was repeating to myself was like,
Yeah.
"You are failing on all fronts. You're
Wow.
failing at work. You're failing your clients. You're failing your mother. You're failing your
Right.
husband. You're failing your kids." And my husband looked at me one day and he said, "Are we okay?"
Mm.
And I said, "Well, we are okay. I am not. I
Okay.
am not okay."
Okay. You use your voice.
Yeah. And he
Yeah.
said, "Whatever it is that you need to do, I want you to do it." He said, "If you
Mm.
need to quit your job, quit your job. We'll figure it out."
Wow.
It was very, I think I started crying in that moment
Yeah.
because I was like seen, I was heard, I was
Right.
validated.
Right.
And he was like, "You're not failing me. I'm worried about you."
Nice.
Um, So yes, I have a new husband, and I say he's new, but we've been married 10 years. So he's not really new anymore. Um, but he was very kind and empathetic and generous with me. And
So the new husband said that, not the old.
the new husband
The
said
new.
that.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
So I was a single mom for a period of years. Um, it's been kind of feels like it's so long ago that
Yeah.
you stop counting, you know?
Right. Right.
Um, but yeah, he was like, I'm worried about you, and whatever it is that you need to do. And so I did. I quit my job, and I spent
Oh,
a year focused on healing, on
okay.
understanding the relationship between the messages that I was telling myself, the stress, and how I was responding to stress,
Right.
and really learning how to tackle that. and to understand, like, what is it that my body is feeling in those situations.
So you did that in a year?
I started the journey in a year. I started
Okay.
the and in that year, I
Right.
really did kind of a deep dive, and I
Okay.
was reading and taking courses and spending a lot of time in
Good
contemplative
stuff.
prayer and journaling and all of
Yeah.
these things,
Wow.
unpacking a lifetime of events that had happened in my life,
Yeah.
pull out, what were the valuable lessons here? What were the lies that I was believing here that somebody else was telling me?
Mm.
And when I went through this year-long process,
Yeah.
and it's a journey, right? Like, I'm not done.
That's
It's
right. That's
still
right.
it's still things these are still things that I work on. I came to the end of that, like, I have more control and more say-so than I have ever recognized in my life. We're
Wow.
on autopilot so much of our lives.
Right.
And part of what I needed to understand is that my body will physically tell me something is going on
Yeah.
emotionally before
Exactly.
I have the words to say what the emotions are.
Until you break down, right?
Yeah. And so, like, I'll feel this tension in my neck and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm really feeling stressed about something. Okay, well, what
Yes.
are those things? What are the messages here?
Yeah.
I know where I feel shame in my body.
You do.
I do, and I feel it, like, on my left rib cage. It's, like, the most bizarre thing.
Wow. But how did you over how you overcoming that? I know it's a journey and we say embrace the journey, not the destination. But I mean, how you and it's probably still a journey, but
Mhm,
how
absolutely.
are you overcoming that?
Yeah. I think the first part of it is recognition. It's awareness, right? It's,
Okay.
"Okay, I feel this intense pain in my shoulder," or, "I have this thing going on," and then asking myself, "Well, what is it that I'm feeling? What emotions am I experiencing right now?"
Okay.
Because a lot of and this is true for me, I'm sure it's true for a lot of your listeners too, we're on autopilot so much that we don't stop and allow ourselves to process what we're feeling.
So you became aware of it and you accepted it? Like this is it.
This is it, right? This is what
Okay.
my body is telling me. And then, okay, well,
Okay.
what am I actually feeling here in this moment?
All right.
What thoughts are driving these feelings?
Okay.
And if I can sit and get away from the busyness and literally spend 90 seconds or 2 minutes
Right.
taking a couple of deep breaths and allowing myself just to sit in the uncomfortableness of
Yes. Yeah.
emotions, right? Like they become icky and we're like, oh, we can't deal with this. And uh,
Right.
you might respond, out of anger or frustration instead of saying, I'm really like I'm lost here, right? I
Mhm.
don't know what I'm doing here. And so instead of, being honest that way, we tend to erupt emotionally,
Exactly.
erupt,
Exactly.
vomit all over the people that we love.
Exactly.
So this process has allowed me to kind of come back to like, what's the truth?
Mm. Okay. And so what was the truth?
Yeah, I think the truth for all of us, Cassandra, is that we are highly complex individuals.
Yeah.
And when we take a minute and stop and actually ask ourselves with kindness and empathy, how am I doing? How
Yeah.
am I actually doing?
Right.
And have that kind of candid conversation with yourself, like maybe you would
Mhm.
with a girlfriend,
Yeah.
and make some notes. And like, okay, well, I'm feeling um, restless. Well, what's
Mhm.
driving the restlessness?
Okay.
I'm avoiding something. Well, what am I avoiding and why am I avoiding it? So I
Mhm.
think the truth is, for me, is stopping and taking stock and
Mhm.
asking myself, what's the truth here? Are there messages here that I'm believing that aren't valid?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what am I going to do with those messages?
Right. Right. And do you reframe those messages? What do you do with them? Do you
I
pivot?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think definitely reframing the message.
Mhm.
And okay, what am I believing here that's not true? I'm avoiding this task because I feel like I'm not capable.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
Mhm.
but is that true?
Right.
Do I just maybe not have enough information to complete the task? Do I need
Mhm.
a bit more research or to go like, phone a friend and like, I'm working on this project and and I'm stuck.
Yes.
And just being able to admit it.
Admit it. That's
Um,
right.
and then, okay, well, it isn't that I'm not capable because I'm highly capable of this.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's just that I am telling myself
Mhm.
you're not capable.
That's
Well,
awesome.
it's a
That's
lie.
awesome. That is, and I know my listeners are listening to this because we all have been confronted by these emotions, and like you said, awareness. But one thing that you said that I really like, you accepted it. This is what I'm dealing with, as opposed to denying it. Nah, I'm not feeling that way, and that's when you start feeling things in your body, and that's when I tell people stress can literally kill you. I remember back in my corporate days, I'm always going to the doctor and it was always stress. And I used to get angry and be stressed more because he kept saying it was stressed. So I kind of go back to something you said, how you mentioned the challenges we have are very significant. They play a significant role in your growth, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And in your opportunities that you have. I want to hear a little bit about your positive intelligence. Like you got a diploma in that. What is that? What's that all about? Because you use that in your coaching.
I do. So positive intelligence, I like to explain it this way. Positive intelligence is kind of like what we were just talking about. It's the ability to recognize what it is that you're experiencing. And the gentleman who created this methodology, his name is Shirzad Shermain, and there are 10
I've
saboteurs. He
heard of
likes to
him.
call them, yeah. I love his work. And part of the reason why I love his work so much is because he comes at it from such a place of kindness and empathy. It's like, we do
Mhm.
not offer ourselves enough kindness.
Yes. We don't have compassion for
We
ourselves.
don't. We do not have compassion for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason why I just love his work so much is to like what you're experiencing. Number one, it's normal. Everybody experiences these things.
Mhm. Mhm.
We are all in the same boat.
Yes. Exactly.
So he has 10 saboteurs. There's an assessment you can take, and which when I took the assessment or the first time, I was like, this is ridiculous. Not a restless avoider. And then I dug a little more and I learned a little bit more. And I was
Yeah.
like, no, I'm totally a restless avoider.
Okay. You only one of those out of
No,
10?
it's two. So
Right.
they rank them. So they kind of give you what your top three are.
Right.
And it's an opportunity to build awareness around those and to work on them.
Okay.
And so, for instance, so when I'm feeling avoidant on something that I need to do, it's it's procrastination.
Mhm.
It's all those things is like oh well, I need to do the lowest hanging fruit on my to do list, right?
Right.
Because it makes you feel productive.
Right. Exactly.
um, so it's like it's awareness of that, and then he wants you to sit and do. He calls them PQ reps, and really, if you're familiar with mindfulness, it is.
Mhm.
I call it just sitting in a micro moment of mindfulness, and it's
Mhm.
literally like 90 seconds, 2 minutes, however much time you can spend. You can spend. You can do it even in a meeting.
Okay.
And it is about like coming to the present moment, not the future,
Yeah.
not the past, what is happening right here,
And
right
now.
now, and
Mhm.
becoming hyper aware of maybe it's your breathing, maybe it's the pattern on the tie sitting across from you.
Yeah.
Just, and what happens when we do that is it allows us to become empathetic and it allows us to become curious.
Mm. Curious.
Curious. So when
Yeah.
we're curious with ourselves, we can get curious with other people. And I think that's where the magic happens,
Yeah.
where we become these, creative, collaborative humans. and we can bring, innovation to the table. So it's really about like, okay, what am I experiencing? Well, I'm experiencing avoidance in this moment. I had this
Yeah.
moment earlier today where I'm like, I'm avoiding something.
Exactly.
Let's
Exactly.
work on that today.
Right.
And so it's really about understanding like what's sabotaging you. And
Yes.
then on the flip side of that, being able to understand that there are actually, calls them sage strengths that go along with these saboteur gifts. So,
Mhm.
part of being an avoider is that I'm generally even keeled and very easygoing. So I'm pretty
Okay.
even tempered and I'm flexible and adaptable. So those things are great qualities.
Right.
But if I'm sitting in avoidance, I can't tap into those things. And when I'm feeling flexible and adaptable, I also feel creative.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay.
So stopping to pause and say, okay, why am I feeling avoidant here? Okay, these are the things that are kind of, maybe, I need to do some more research on this particular project that I'm working on
Right.
to
Mm-hmm.
understand the technology or whatever it is that I'm doing. And
Oh,
and then when I start to do that, I start to feel like, oh, well, I could do this and it could look like that.
right.
And I could tap into somebody that I know who could help me,
Right.
bring my vision to fruition,
Right.
as opposed to avoiding all the things.
Yes. Right. So I'm thinking about my listeners, and these are listeners who are ready to move forward in their lives, but they're stuck. They're avoiding, like there's some that I have something in my eye. I'm sorry. There's some that want to get out of a relationship, but they can't. There's some that want to change jobs, but they can't. Some that want to start a new business, but yet they can't. How can you help them get out of that and get unstuck and start
Yeah.
doing things? So,
So I think the first thing I would say is language matters.
mhm,
And can't is such a limiting word.
okay. Yes.
So you actually can do all those things,
Yes.
just
Okay.
choosing not to at this time.
Okay.
So if you ask yourself, why am I choosing to stay in this relationship at this time? And unpack it,
Unpack it.
and then take whatever it is that you find and ask yourself some more questions there to really get to the root of the can't. I don't
Right.
like the word can't because we have more agency and we have more power and control than we give ourselves credit for.
Right. Okay. Okay. And should is another one. Should
Yeah.
is like I know I should, but that's what do we call that? Shame.
Yes.
Judgment. Yeah.
It's and it's judgment. And I think we get ourselves into a lot of trouble with those things. And I just want to go back to when we're in those moments of shoulds, coulds, woulda,
Right.
um, is to bring back to yourself kindness and empathy.
Hmm.
And something that I would encourage your listeners to do if they're
Yeah.
game is to find a picture of themselves when they're very, very young, so under the age of 10,
Okay.
and to take that photograph and really study it through the lens of intense and deep love. And
Okay.
to look at the picture and to list out, I want you to physically write it out, all of the beautiful things that you see about this beautiful young child staring back at you.
Hmm.
They're silly and funny and joyful and smart and creative. And to write out all those things that you see.
Yeah. That's good.
And anytime you're like feeling shame or the shoulds, woulds, coulda, um, to go back to that place of self empathy.
Hmm.
And it's like, you know what? Well, I can actually do these things. I can because I'm capable, because I was created intelligent and funny and
Yeah.
capable and smart.
Smart.
And
Yeah.
like I am inquisitive. I
Yeah.
think as children, as we grow up, we lose our ability to be inquisitive and curious.
Yeah.
And so kind of going through this exercise, it opens that door to curiosity. Okay, well, what would 10-year-old me do here?
Right. Exactly. Yes.
And just kind of embracing the ability to be kind and empathetic to yourself in that moment and open the floodgates for joy and for curiosity and for self-empathy.
Well, see, that's why I love the title, showing the inner critic who's boss. You
Yeah.
know, so those are the things that we do to show them who's boss. If it's to look at a baby picture or to take the should and I could and I wish and well, take all of that out just to remind yourself. And it reminds me of when you were going through your journey, which was still on a journey,
Yeah.
but you came in touch with individuals that you deemed as mentors.
Yeah.
And I believe a lot of my listeners should, not should, but having a mentor is very good to have. But yet they're not quite sure, well, who could be my mentor? You just happen to work in an organization where they probably were your mentors and you didn't call them mentors at first, right?
No, right,
So
exactly.
how did that name come up? Like, and you value mentors. Why are they just so important to have?
Yeah, I think we learn so much by others,
Mm-hmm.
by observing others and the way they interact with other people and the way they interact in their families and the way they run their businesses.
Yeah.
And that observation is, when we kind of open our eyes and we stop to think about, well, why do I really like this person?
Mm-hmm.
Because, they're really, really kind,
Right.
but they also know how to tell the kind, hard truth.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I think for anybody, it is taking a look at the people around you and,
Mm-hmm.
well, what do I admire about this person? What
Okay.
can I learn if I spent a little bit more time with them? What do you think I could learn from them?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
even picking up the phone saying, hey, I really admire this trait about you. Would you mind talking to me a little bit about it and
Right.
how it's developed over the years for you?
Yeah. Now that's interesting, Robin, because you're a coach and I'm a mentor, right? So what's the difference from your perspective? What's the difference between a coach versus a mentor?
Yeah. So I think, and this is probably a really interesting conversation because I would love to hear what you have to say too. I think coaching it is asking the questions for the other person to come to their own conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
to draw from the depth
Mm-hmm.
of wherever it is that they are and to come
Mm-hmm.
up with their own answer. And in my experience with mentorship and being mentored, not just with the couple that I worked with, but I've had
Yeah.
other more formal mentorship
Yeah.
engagements. Um, there was a lot more kind of like discussion, and I got more advice from my mentor
Mm. Okay.
and more like kind of direct input. Whereas when I've been coached, it was a lot of really hard questions and
Yeah.
having me kind of get to this place to the icky, sticky root of it to get
Right.
to the bottom
Yeah.
of that. So I think that they are married. They marry beautifully. And
Yeah.
if you can have a coach and a mentor,
Yeah.
because that's like a kind of a powerhouse dynamic.
Yeah, that is.
And I think also mentoring and coaching are very similar in that it is um, taking a look at where you are now and where you want to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a lot of overlap.
Yeah, it is. Because I see the mentorship too as a role model.
Yeah.
Not that a coach couldn't be one, but also as a mentor, I spend more time.
Yes.
It's like a relationship. Not that the coaching is not, but just kind of like the partnership, the relationship that we spend time with. And as a mentor, I can ask the hard questions as well, and then I get to know them on all levels, personal, business, and all of that, and know it's kind of like a mother-daughter relationship,
Yeah.
to get them to answer what they want to know, but also just modeling for them so they can see you and see what you do and to get advice as well. So I think you're right. I know you're right. They're both similar.
Mm,
But you are certified in being a coach. You have that. I'm not certified. My mentorship is my life.
yeah.
It's kind of like things that I've been through, gone through, just like yourself, that I'm able to provide them insight and wisdom just based on experiences that I've had.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's powerful. I think those life experiences and
Hmm.
helping others through the gifts that have come out of those life experiences is incredibly powerful. And I don't think you don't need a certification for that.
No,
You know, and that's just icing on the cake, if you will. But it is definitely, I think, something that's not necessary.
right, right. And also accountability.
Mm,
Could be both, but for me, I'm like their accountability partner. And
yeah,
this is the things that you said you wanted to accomplish, da 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 da. And then when we get back, well, let's kind of talk about why that didn't happen,
yeah,
in a loving, compassionate way.
for sure.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
what do you love about your work? I can
Um,
feel the energy and the passion. And, I'm saying this for my listeners because I know they know what it is that they love. Many of them do, but they're not doing it.
yeah.
Just just the energy, that you get from it is just unbelievable. What do you love about your work?
Yeah. Um, I love the possibilities
Hmm.
that we're all incredibly complex human beings.
Yeah.
And we have so much potential.
Hmm.
And that looks different and means something different to everyone.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think what I love about my work is watching people get to that place of this is it. This is what I
Yeah.
want. I'm on the path of working in an industry that means a lot to me, if that's what it
Yes.
is. Or, some people might be, struggling with a relationship. And so, oh,
Yeah.
I'm making progress on
Yeah.
not being so reactive.
Right.
And I love what I do when people kind of get to that moment and their eyes light up and they're like, yeah, I
Oh,
see
yeah.
it. And I've had those moments myself in coaching engagements. And I was being coached by a gentleman he was executive coach. And I told the same story 3 times and it was a negative story. And the third session, he says, okay, stop. I have to stop you. And I was like, okay. He goes, you've told me that story 3 times. And I was like, I have. And he goes,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I knew something like the kind hard truth was coming. And he said, you're carrying baggage
Mm.
and you need to put the baggage down because it's holding you back.
Mm. Okay.
So in that moment, I like literally visualized myself carrying, those like suitcases from like the
Yeah.
50s that were like super heavy, these giant boxes. Like,
Samsonite.
right? Like standing in the doorway and
Yeah.
literally dropping them and hearing in my mind them going thunk.
Wow.
And in that moment, it was like the switch flipped.
Yeah.
And when I kind of opened the suitcase, I looked inside and I was like, yeah, these are dirty socks and this was negative and this was bad. But
Yeah.
oh, look at this sparkly thing right here. This was a gem.
Right.
This tough experience, here were the gems that came out of that.
Wow. Wow.
So that's what I love about what I do is
Mhm.
watching people find the gem or find themselves on the path to finding it.
Yes. Yes. We definitely have some similarities. I have this, I have this vision to just change empower a generation of women, to start living their best life. And what does that look like? Because we all have gifts and we all have talents, and we're not using them. And it just, I'm like, whatever I can do that's legal, ethical, and moral to help and empower people to do that because they'll be more fulfilled,
Yeah.
They'll have a reason to want to get up in the morning. It's like that to me is magical. When you know that there's something that you're here for rather than just the mundane. Get up, go to work, come home, look at TV, get up, go to work. Yeah,
And
that
it's
kind
like that impact on your kids,
of,
right?
yes,
That's, I think about, the future and working with single moms and helping them to stop feeling like it's, you're on the hamster wheel, right?
yeah,
It's day
yeah,
after day after day. And there's absolutely truth to that. It can be monotonous,
right.
but looking for and starting and asking yourself, okay, like, yeah, I got to do these things, got to pay the bills, right? But how can I maybe look at my work differently
Yes.
and reframe the messaging that I'm telling myself about my work so that it feels differently? Because our thoughts are
Hmm.
what drive our emotions.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if
Action too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so if I can think about things differently and choose to, and it takes
Mhm.
effort work, right? Like post-it notes and stickies all over the place. Like, no, I actually love this part about my job. Gives me life here. These
Right,
things over here don't give me life, and that's okay, but
right.
necessary evil. But here are things that give me life. And so I'm going to
Yeah.
focus on those.
Yes, that personal development stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. So this is maybe a no-brainer because of your experience in regards to being a single parent. But I'm curious to why your focus is on single parenting so much.
Yeah. Um, there's a lot of coaches out there for focus on the executive, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of niches out there. And I really felt called to work with single moms,
Hmm.
and because there's so much need there.
Yeah.
They're struggling with so much and carrying so much.
Hmm.
And it's such a privilege to come alongside a single mom and say, hey, you're normal.
Yeah.
You're seen, you're heard, you're not alone.
Yeah. Right.
How can I encourage you and empower you in what you're doing to help you take a different look at life and at
Hmm.
stress and
Hmm.
help you see how that impacts your kids?
Yes, that's so true. So true.
And it
Childhood
impacts
has
your
so much.
work, right?
Yeah.
It impacts your
Yeah.
work
That's
and it
right.
opens you up for promotion. And, I think the possibilities are endless. And I think in the workforce, single mothers don't tend to get invested in by
Mhm.
organizations.
Yes.
A lot of the women that I work with are entry level positions. Organizations don't invest in entry level positions with personal growth and development training. They're missing out on
Mhm.
a huge part of I hate the word human capital, but these people, these women are the future of the organizations.
Yeah.
They've already hired them and invested that much in them.
Yeah.
Let's invest a little more.
Yeah. And sometimes I wonder though, do they not because they are single parents and they're thinking they won't? Because I remember um, having a boss to say this. I can't believe he said this when one of my colleagues got pregnant. He says, "Oh, that was a mistake." I'm like, What do you mean that was a mistake? They're not going to be able to put up. They're not going to give 100% because they have children, and just the mindset of those that just it was just so baffling to me. That was said years ago,
Yeah.
but if it was said now, it probably wouldn't be said now to me then right
Right.
now. But yeah, but you're right. There's just so much talent and gifts and all of that. And you're also right in saying the impact they have on their children growing up. That's why I say when your child, what happens in your childhood parlays into your adulthood. So you want to be very careful and do what you need to do to help your children and support your kids to be
Yeah.
healthy adults. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
One more question for you is I wanted to, and you've done a lot already, but just to hone in on this one, what are some actionable takeaways that you could share with my listeners that they can implement right away? I
Yeah.
love the one about the picture, but just think about the audience who's in their way. There's certain things they want to do, be an um, to get out of a relationship, to get a new job, start be an entrepreneur, just to do something different than what they're doing, to start living their life. What are some key takeaways you can help them with?
Yeah, I think a couple things. So, great question. By the way, one thing that I would encourage your listeners to do, if they're feel like that angst and that they're kind of on the precipice, if they just really want to do something different, is to disconnect. I want you
Mhm.
to turn off your phone. I want you to get away from a screen, and I want you to spend some time outside.
Mm.
If you have a park that you love to go to or some woods that you like to sit in, spend some time
Mhm.
in nature. And studies show, like they do forest bathing in Japan, and I'm like, I love this idea. That the more time that you spend in nature, that there's a chemical change that happens in your body. It happens
Mm.
in your mind. And I think when we do that, and we're not constantly consuming, it's
Yes.
like we're consuming, all these, 30-second videos and, all the things that are coming at our face at
Yes.
warp speed. It shuts our brain off. Like we
Yes.
lose the ability to think and to process and to become creative. So if you are really serious about like, what is it that I want to do?
Yes.
Connect, get away from a screen,
Okay.
go spend some intentional time doing something else.
Yes. I love that. I love that.
And I think like that, it lowers your stress level. It
Mhm.
opens the pathways for creativity. It also, I think, opens your emotional pathways
Mhm.
so that you have the ability to really start to have that conversation with yourself. We always joke about like, you're crazy if you have a conversation with yourself and you actually answer. Well, answer yourself. It doesn't mean you're nuts. It's okay.
Right.
But just to start to peel that onion, what do I want? How do I want to get it?
Yeah.
What is this? What could I see? Where could I see myself in 5 years? If
Yes.
5 years is too hard, okay. How about 6 months?
Yes, I love that. I love that. And that's why we get vacation on our jobs. And I've known people that don't take them.
Yeah,
You have to take some time off. I love it when you talk about get outdoors. There's a chemical change. I like being around water, just to get away, and then you just feel so rejuvenated, you
me too.
know. And that's a step that they can take right now.
Yep,
They can get away for I don't know, what they have mental health days.
for
They
sure.
mental health days at jobs now. They didn't used to have that. But I'd love that. If by anything else before we close our show today.
Yeah, I would. I think the other thing I would do, definitely do the picture
Yeah.
empathy exercise. Please do that. And then one more thing I think I would do is just to offer yourself some grace and
Mhm.
to know that where you are today is not
Mhm.
where you're going to be in 12 months.
Yes.
You will, even if you don't fully pursue whatever it is that you're off to get, you're
Mhm.
not going to be the same human being.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
those little changes along the way will help to fuel you. So write yourself a letter today
Hmm.
to your 12-month future you.
Love that.
And just some very simple ways to really, I think, shake loose of that, like I'm
Yeah.
stuck feeling.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Robin. That's some good advice. And for my listeners, showing the inner critic who's boss. That is so, I just love that because you are in charge of yourself. And I just want to thank Robin for all her insight, all of her wisdom, even the coaching that she has given us today has just been great. And if you think that this podcast will be a blessing to someone, please share it and know that this podcast is your way and your way is on every Wednesday at 1 p.m. sharp. So right now we're going to close this and I'd like to say bye for now. And I want to thank Robin for all of her support with this and God bless.
Thank you, Cassandra. It was a pleasure to be here.